Everything you have been told about passion is wrong. Your experience proves it. You have been searching for this mythical feeling, this moment of divine alignment, where work stops feeling like work and suddenly everything clicks into place. You have been waiting for that magical intersection where your deepest desires meet profitable skills, and the universe rewards you with fulfillment and financial freedom. And while you wait, while you search, while you pivot from one interest to another looking for that spark, you watch other people build empires doing things that look boring as hell. There is a reason for this. The reason is not that you have not found your passion yet. The reason is that passion is a biological distraction designed by evolution to keep you searching instead of building. Let me show you what I mean. Your brain operates on a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. That is a common misunderstanding. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It spikes not when you get the reward, but when you predict the reward might be close. This is why slot machines are addictive, why dating apps feel more exciting than actual relationships, and why the idea of your passion feels better than the execution of any real skill. The dopamine hit comes from the search, not from the finding. Evolution designed this system 200 years ago when our ancestors were hunter-gatherers on the African savanna. In that environment, the ability to stay motivated while searching for unpredictable food sources meant survival. The monkey who kept searching for fruit trees even after days without finding one had better odds of genetic continuity than the monkey who gave up and starved. So, natural selection built into your neurobiology a reward system that makes the hunt itself feel meaningful. The problem is that you do not live on the savanna anymore. You live in a world where the hunt never ends because the options are infinite. Every podcast, every YouTube video, every self-help book tells you there is something better out there, some undiscovered alignment between your authentic self and marketplace demand. And your dopamine system, still running software from 200 years ago, interprets this endless buffet of possibilities as a reason to keep searching instead of building. Here is what actually happens in your brain when someone tells you to follow your passion. First, your prefrontal cortex. The CEO of your brain responsible for long-term planning and rational decision-making gets hijacked by your limbic system, the ancient emotional core that prioritizes immediate feelings over strategic outcomes. The limbic system hears the word passion and releases a small dopamine spike because passion implies novelty, excitement, and the possibility of a future reward. This feels good. This feels meaningful. So you start exploring. You watch videos about starting a podcast, launching a clothing brand, becoming a travel photographer, writing a novel, building an app. Each new possibility triggers another small dopamine release. The more you explore, the better you feel. But here is the trap. The dopamine system is designed to motivate exploration, not execution. Once you actually start building something, once the novelty wears off and you are faced with the boring, repetitive work of developing competence, your dopamine levels crash. The activity stops feeling passionate. You interpret this neurochemical shift as evidence that you chose wrong, that this was not your real passion after all. So you go back to searching, and the cycle repeats. This is not a failure of character. This is not evidence that you are lazy or uncommitted. This is your biological machinery operating exactly as designed, except the environment has changed and the software has not been updated. Let me tell you what the successful people you admire are actually doing differently. They are not following their passion. They are building competence in a domain that has marketplace value, and the passion emerges as a byproduct of mastery. This is called the craftsman mindset, and it is the opposite of the passion mindset. The passion mindset asks, what can the world offer me? The craftsman mindset asks, what can I offer the world? The passion mindset makes you a consumer of possibilities. The craftsman mindset makes you a producer of value. And here is the neurological difference. When you adopt a craftsman mindset and commit to developing rare and valuable skills regardless of how passionate you feel in the moment, you activate a different neural pathway. Instead of relying on dopamine anticipation, you start building habits through repetition. And habits are controlled by the basal ganglia, a primitive structure that does not care about passion or meaning. The basal ganglia just automates behavior through consistent repetition. This is why professional athletes do not rely on motivation. They rely on routine. This is why successful entrepreneurs do not wait to feel inspired. They execute on systems. Biology does not reward passion. Biology rewards consistency. Let me pause here for a second and ask you a question that maybe no one has ever asked you. What is the worst part of living with this internal struggle? Not what you tell people, but the part you carry in silence. I want you to know something. What you are feeling is more common than you imagine. Thousands of people are watching this video right now carrying exactly the same weight. If you have the courage, leave a comment telling me what is the hardest part for you. Your honesty might make someone else feel less alone today. Now let me continue showing you how to break this pattern. The mythology of passion is not just neurologically inaccurate, it is also historically recent. The idea that your work should be your passion, that you should love what you do for a living, that career fulfillment is a birthright, none of this existed before the 1970s. For the vast majority of human history, work was survival. You did what your parents did, what your village needed, what the season demanded. The concept of asking whether your work aligns with your deepest self would have been incomprehensible to a medieval blacksmith or a rice farmer in ancient China. This does not mean their lives were miserable. Many historical accounts suggest that people found meaning, pride, and satisfaction in their work without ever asking whether it was their passion. They found meaning through competence, through contributing to their community, through the pride of a job done well. Passion as a prerequisite for work is a modern invention, and it correlates almost perfectly with the rise of consumer capitalism. Why? Because a population that believes fulfillment comes from finding the perfect career is a population that keeps consuming self-help products, career coaching, online courses, and productivity apps. The passion industrial complex is worth billions of dollars, and it survives by convincing you that the solution to your dissatisfaction is more searching, more exploring, more pivoting. It is not. The solution is commitment. Let me show you what commitment looks like at the neurological level. When you commit to building competence in a specific domain, when you show up consistently, even when you do not feel motivated, several things happen in your brain. First, your prefrontal cortex starts building thicker connections through a process called myelination. Myelin is the insulation around neural pathways that makes signal transmission faster and more efficient. The more you repeat a behavior, the more myelin gets deposited, and the easier that behavior becomes. This is why practicing guitar feels excruciating at first and effortless after 10,000 hours. The activity itself has not changed. Your neurobiology has changed. Second, your brain starts associating the activity with competence rather than novelty. Competence triggers a different kind of satisfaction than dopamine anticipation. It triggers serotonin, a neurotransmitter associated with status and social recognition. When you get good at something, when people start respecting your skill, when you can solve problems that others cannot, your serotonin levels rise. This feels different than passion. It feels like quiet confidence, like self-respect, like mattering. And unlike dopamine, which crashes as soon as the novelty fades, serotonin is sustainable. Third, your identity starts to reorganize around your competence. Neuroscience shows that your sense of self is not fixed. It is a story your brain tells based on recent behavior patterns. If you consistently act like someone who builds things, your brain updates the story to, I am a builder. If you consistently act like someone who searches for passion, your brain updates the story to, I am a searcher. The story you believe determines the actions you take, and the actions you take determine the results you get. Here is the Stoic perspective on this, and it aligns perfectly with the neuroscience. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in Meditations that the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. He was not talking about clinical insanity. He was talking about the insanity of living according to other people's definitions of success, happiness, and meaning. The cultural narrative that tells you to follow your passion is not designed to help you. It is designed to keep you consuming. The Stoics understood that fulfillment comes not from aligning your work with some pre-existing passion, but from doing your work with excellence, regardless of what that work is. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most influential Stoic teachers, said that no great thing is created suddenly. Mastery, competence, and the quiet satisfaction that comes from being genuinely useful to others, all of this requires time, repetition, and the willingness to show up even when the dopamine is gone. Seneca wrote that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. How much of your life have you wasted searching for passion instead of building competence? How many years have you spent consuming information about potential paths instead of committing to one path and becoming undeniably good at it? Now let me give you the protocol. This is not advice, this is maintenance. This is how you reprogram your biological machinery to stop chasing dopamine ghosts and start building something real. Step 1. Choose a domain based on market value and your existing skills, not on passion. Look at what skills are economically rewarded in the current marketplace. Look at what skills you already have some foundation in, even if you are not passionate about them. Choose the intersection of these two factors. This is not settling, this is strategy. Your goal is not to find work that feels good. Your goal is to become so good at something that you create value for others. Step 2. Commit to a minimum viable timeline of 3 years. 3 years is the neurological threshold for building genuine competence. It is long enough for myelination to occur, for your basal ganglia to automate the behaviors, for your identity to reorganize around the skill. It is also long enough to outlast the passion seekers who will quit after 6 months when the novelty wears off. Your competitive advantage is not talent, it is endurance. Step 3. Build a daily practice that does not rely on motivation. Motivation is a dopamine spike, and spikes are unreliable. Instead, build a routine that happens regardless of how you feel. This means setting a specific time, a specific location, and a specific cue that triggers the behavior. If you are building a writing skill, you write every morning at 6 a.m. at the same desk after drinking the same coffee. The sameness is not boring. The sameness is neurological efficiency. Your basal ganglia will automate the routine, and once it is automated, you will not need willpower. Step 4. Measure progress through output, not feelings. Passion is a feeling, and feelings are chemically unstable. Instead of asking, "Do I feel passionate about this?" ask, "What did I produce today? Did I write 500 words? Did I code for 2 hours? Did I make 10 sales calls?" Quantifiable output is the only reliable feedback loop. Step 5. Ignore your feelings for the first 18 months. This is the most important part. For the first 18 months of building competence, your feelings will lie to you. Your limbic system will tell you this is not your passion. You are wasting your time. You should be exploring other options. Ignore it. Your limbic system is running outdated software. It does not understand that the modern environment rewards deep work and long-term commitment, not novelty seeking. By month 18, if you have followed the protocol, something interesting will happen. You will have developed enough competence that people start recognizing your skill. You will start solving problems that others cannot. You will start earning respect, money, or both. And your brain, noticing this shift, will start releasing serotonin. You will begin to feel passionate about the work, not because the work changed, but because your relationship to the work changed. You became competent, and competence is attractive. Let me give you a real example from neuroscience research. Robert Sapolsky, the Stanford biologist and neuroscientist, studied stress and behavior in baboon troops in Africa for decades. He observed that the baboons who experienced the most chronic stress were not the ones at the bottom of the hierarchy, as you might expect. The most stressed baboons were the ones in the middle, the ones who were constantly jockeying for position, constantly comparing themselves to others, constantly unsure of their status. The baboons at the top of the hierarchy had lower stress hormones because they had clarity. They knew their role. They had competence in dominance behaviors. And the baboons at the bottom, the ones who had accepted their position and stopped fighting, also had lower stress. The highest stress belonged to the ones who were still searching, still trying to figure out where they fit, still believing that the right position was just around the corner. You are that middle baboon. You are stuck in chronic stress because you are still searching for your passion instead of committing to competence. Every time you pivot to a new interest, every time you consume another video about finding your purpose, you are reactivating the stress response. Your cortisol levels spike. Your prefrontal cortex goes offline. You make worse decisions, and the cycle continues. The way out is not to search harder. The way out is to stop searching and start building. Here is another layer to this. The passion narrative is not just neurologically destructive, it is also socially isolating. When you are constantly searching for your passion, you are, by definition, not contributing. You are consuming information, exploring options, trying to figure yourself out. This is an inherently self-centered activity, and humans are social primates. We are neurologically wired to derive meaning from contributing to the group, from being useful to others, from having a clear role in the tribe. Frans de Waal, the primatologist, has shown that even in chimpanzee societies, individuals who contribute, whether through hunting, grooming, or peacemaking, have higher social status and lower stress hormones than individuals who are purely self-interested. Your brain does not care about your passion. Your brain cares about whether you are useful to the tribe. When you commit to building competence and start solving real problems for real people, your brain registers this as social contribution. Your serotonin rises. Your sense of belonging increases. You feel less isolated. And ironically, this is when passion emerges. Not because you found the right activity, but because you became the right person. You became someone who matters. Let me address the most common objection. What if I build competence in something and then realize it is not fulfilling? First, fulfillment is not a destination. It is a chemical state that comes from competence plus contribution. If you are competent and contributing, you will feel fulfilled regardless of the domain. Second, the skills you build are transferable. If you spend 3 years becoming an expert in marketing, and then you decide you want to apply those skills to environmental advocacy instead of corporate clients, the competence transfers. You are not starting over, you are redirecting. And third, the alternative is worse. The alternative is spending your entire life searching for fulfillment and never building anything. The alternative is being 50 years old with a resume full of half-finished projects and a brain full of regret. The passion seekers do not end up passionate, they end up bitter, because they spent their lives consuming possibilities instead of producing value. The Stoics had a term for this. They called it living in accordance with nature. And by nature, they did not mean going to the woods and hugging trees. They meant understanding what humans are biologically designed to do and organizing your life around that design. Humans are designed to solve problems, to build things, to contribute to the group, and to develop competence through repetition. We are not designed to feel passionate every day. We are not designed to have work that feels like play. Those are modern fantasies that disconnect you from your biology. Living in accordance with nature means accepting that most days will feel neutral, that motivation is unreliable, that the meaningful life is built through disciplined action over time, not through emotional alignment. Marcus Aurelius woke up every morning and had to remind himself to get out of bed and do his duty as emperor, even when he did not feel like it. He did not wait for passion, he executed on principle. And history remembers him as one of the greatest leaders in Western civilization. Not because he loved his job, but because he did his job with excellence. Now let me show you what happens when you follow this protocol for 3 years. First, your identity changes. You stop being someone who is searching and start being someone who builds. This shift is not philosophical, it is neurological. Your brain updates the story based on the patterns of behavior you have established. Second, your economic situation changes. Competence is rare, and rare skills are financially rewarded. You will make more money not because you found your passion, but because you became undeniably good at something people need. Third, your stress levels drop. Chronic stress comes from uncertainty. When you commit to a path and start seeing measurable progress, the uncertainty dissolves. Your cortisol levels stabilize. You sleep better. You think more clearly. Fourth, your relationships improve. When you are no longer obsessed with finding yourself, you have more energy to invest in other people. You become less self-centered and more present. And fifth, the passion emerges. Not because you found it, but because you built it. Passion is not a prerequisite, it is a result. It is what happens when competence meets contribution over time. Let me give you one final perspective from evolutionary biology. Richard Dawkins, in The Selfish Gene, explains that we are survival machines built by our genes to propagate genetic material into the next generation. Our feelings, our desires, our sense of meaning, none of this exists to make us happy. It exists to make us survive and reproduce. The feeling of passion is a neurochemical trick designed to motivate exploration when resources are scarce. But you do not live in scarcity anymore. You live in abundance, and in an environment of abundance, the optimal strategy is not exploration, it is exploitation. You pick something with economic value, you exploit it by becoming as competent as possible, and you reap the rewards of specialization. This is not cold or cynical, this is just accurate. Your brain is a biological machine running on evolutionary programming that is 200,000 years out of date. If you want to win in the modern world, you need to understand the programming and override it when necessary. Following your passion is obeying the programming. Building competence is hacking it. So here is my challenge to you. Stop searching. Pick a skill that has marketplace value and that you have some foundation in. Commit to 3 years of deliberate practice. Build a daily routine that does not rely on motivation. Measure progress through output. Ignore your feelings for the first 18 months. And watch what happens. You will not feel passionate on day 1. You probably will not feel passionate on day 100. But somewhere around month 18, when you start solving problems that other people cannot, when you start earning respect and money and autonomy, when you start contributing real value to other people, your brain will register this as success. Your serotonin will rise. Your identity will shift, and you will feel something better than passion. You will feel competence. You will feel useful. You will feel like you matter, and that is the only feeling worth chasing. If you made it this far, I already know something important about you. You do not just want to survive your own mind, you want to master it. This channel is not about magic promises. It is about real people sharing real tools that work in the real world. If this makes sense to you, subscribe to the channel. Not because I am asking, but because you deserve a place where you can learn to build the version of yourself you always knew was in there. Biology is destiny until you hack it. One final note. The content in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional, psychological, or medical advice. If you are struggling with mental health issues, please consult a licensed therapist or medical professional. The ideas presented here are based on neuroscience research and Stoic philosophy, but they are intended to provoke thought and discussion, not to replace personalized care. Your brain is complex, your situation is unique, and no single video can capture all the variables that matter in your life. Take what is useful, leave what is not, and always prioritize your well-being above content consumption.